Hi Heidi, many thanks for joining us today. So today we're going to talk about social return on investment. Heidi Fisher is amazing at supporting social enterprises to measure social impact, but she also does lots of wider work and supports the School of Social Entrepreneurs as well. So I'm going to hand over to Heidi just to start off by explaining the work that she does and the impact it has.
Hi, Asha. Thanks for having me along. So I'm Heidi Fisher from Make an Impact CIC. We're a social enterprise that works with other social enterprises and the public sector to help them to measure, communicate, and report their impact better. So what that actually looks like in day-to-day work is things like helping organizations to decide what they're going to measure, how they're going to measure it, and how they collect their data, as well as taking any data they have and producing reports, so impact reports or social return on investment reports, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
So Heidi, just to get us started, what is social return on investment?
Yeah, that's a great opener question. So social return on investment is a way of taking your social, economic, and environmental impacts, depending on what type of impacts you're creating, and converting them into a financial figure. So it's similar to cost benefit analysis. So if people have ever looked at that, it's also along the lines of value for money calculations. But what it does is it takes all of your outcomes and impacts that you create through your delivery. It assigns what's called financial proxies or financial values to those outcomes, and then it converts it into the social return on investment figure, which is it says for every pound that is spent on the program or the activities that you deliver, it generates, let's say, 8, 9, £10 worth of social return for every pound you spent.
And why would people want to measure this?
So it's a great way to put what you do into a monetary value. So very often organizations are really great at getting the qualitative data. So they'll have lots of case studies and feedback and testimonials. But when you particularly when you're working with commissioners in healthcare, education, any public sector bodies, what they care about is that the money that they're investing in giving you to deliver contracts or commissioning you to deliver services with is going to generate some kind of return. So the reason for wanting to do a social return on investment is that you can prove that it's worth giving you some money because it's going to have positive outcomes and impacts on the people that you're working with. So it might be that you are going to reduce how often people access health services. It might be that you improve people's attainment in schools, different types of outcomes. And for a commissioner, that's really valuable because that might be their area of focus, that they're trying to improve those outcomes in those particular areas. So to be able to calculate and prove that your work actually supports what they're trying to achieve from a public sector perspective is really, really important.
So that sounds great. Also sounds really complicated as well. So how is it calculated?
So the simple answer to that is, as I said, we assign financial proxies to the outcomes. So nowadays, which is something that wasn't available about 20 years ago, there are lots and lots of financial proxies and values for different types of outcomes, particularly things around health, education, offending and offender management. So if you're working in those areas, it's quite easy to get these financial proxies to allocate to your outcomes. You then identify how many of the people you've worked with have achieved those outcomes and multiply that number by the financial value that you've assigned to that particular outcome. So that's the easy bit. Everyone can usually do that bit. Then you get to the stage where you have to make adjustments. So one of the things with social return on investment is you don't want to overstate your social return on investment figure. So because if it's overstated, then it can impact on the credibility of what you're actually presenting, because people will just be like, that number's way too big, it can't really be that much social return on investment. So the 4 adjustments that you go through are what's called dead weight, drop off, attribution, and displacement. They sound really exciting. I know. So dead weight is for things that would have happened anyway. So a percentage of the people that you work with would have achieved the outcomes regardless of whether they got support from you. So that's an adjustment for things that would have happened anyway. Drop off is the adjustment for outcomes that won't sustain beyond a 1-year period. So for some people, whilst they might achieve positive outcomes whilst they're working with you, they might not sustain that positivity beyond the 1-year period. Attribution then accounts for the part of the outcome that potentially belongs to another organization. So if you've worked in partnership, which is really simple, you would say 50% of the outcome belongs to the organization you worked in partnership with. If you've got multiple partners, then it's slightly more complicated. And then displacement is for activities that you've displaced. So this is often the hardest one for people to figure out, because it's saying, well, if there was another service that existed before yours that people no longer access and they're now coming to you instead, what is that displacement that you've had in terms of the activities you now deliver? And of course, in our social return on investment, although we're focusing on positive outcomes, we also need to think about if there are any negative outcomes and impacts that we need to adjust for and reduce the figures by. So that's something also to take into consideration when you're doing your calculations. So once you've done those adjustments, that will reduce the financial values you've got for each outcome, and then you're totaling up those remaining values and you divide that by the cost of delivering that particular activity, and that gives you your social return on investment figure. That's the simple explanation of how it's calculated. So very much like a cost benefit analysis, except the benefits that we're looking at in this situation are the values of the impacts to people or the community or to statutory agencies.
So there's quite a structure and a methodological process that sits behind these calculations, which I think is really important for people to know, that actually there's a process that takes place and a statistical analysis and data that you draw upon to be able to reach these figures. And you and your organisation were commissioned to create the social return on investment report for Innovating Minds for the Healing Together programme. So tell me about what did the figures speak to you? What did they say to you?
Yeah, so in terms of just to kind of reiterate around the process, is that there is a full structure in terms of how you do a social return on investment. If you go onto Social Value UK's website, they've got all their principles around how you actually capture and measure your impact, which underpins how you then go about calculating your social return on investment. And it's a very formalized structure. There is I think about a 200-page document that takes you through step by step how to do a social return on investment calculation, if there's any geeks out there that want to go and read all that. But yeah, it's very much a formalized standard process that's followed. So when we did the work with you for the Healing Together programme, we were following that methodology and approach, and what came out the other end is a social return on investment of £9.06 for every pound that's spent on the Healing Together programme, and that was split between outcomes for the children and also outcomes for the practitioners in terms of their skills and development.
Great, thank you for that, Heidi. So if people are considering calculating a social return on investment on their own products and services, as well as coming to you for their support, where could they find out more information?
Yeah, so I would go onto the Social Value UK's website and download the resources that are available on there, which tells you, it's a guide to how to calculate your social return on investment. If you want to do it yourself, then you can do it. I would just be careful that you don't overstate the figures, and that you're really checking in that what you're putting in there is actually a true reflection of what you've actually delivered. It's very easy to think, everything is down to us as an organization. We want to claim 100% of this, and in actuality, that's not always the case. So it's just making sure that you've got those adjustments right. That's probably the trickiest bit. Trying to find a financial value to assign to an outcome is perhaps easier. I would say it's probably easier for me now because I've got a whole bank of numbers, but there's also a lot of open source places where you could access those numbers as well. But yeah, I would just be making sure that you've captured information to support and evidence the adjustments that you're making.
I think it's really important as well. I found the process of having somebody independently and externally do that process reduces those biases that you may have. So we literally provided you with the data, the raw data, and gave you the information that you needed, and then all the adjustments, etc., came from you, as opposed to being influenced by us at Innovating Minds. Because I think when you're in it and you're seeing the impact and you're reading the case studies, that we don't fully get involved in this methodology and this statistical analysis process, that we come at it from, I guess, from our hearts, because the impact we know it has on children and families, because we hear about it on a day-to-day basis. So I definitely think it is worth having somebody independently take you through that process to be able to calculate social return on investment. And for us, with the Healing Together programme, it has been something that we've shared with funders. We also build it into our impact reporting. So the impact reports we develop for our Healing Together facilitators, and a lot of the time people say we probably have underestimated it, but I think that's a better place to be, instead of overestimating it and then everybody questioning or kind of not really thinking it's a reliable figure that we've given.
Yeah, definitely. It's a powerful thing to do, and I have to say, there's nothing that excites me more than getting a spreadsheet out and doing a social return on investment calculation. Is like the real geeky bit in me is like, I'm excited to see what that end number is, and you don't ever know what you're going to get until you're doing the calculations and really looking at all the different outcomes. So it's always really exciting to see what data organizations have. So with yours, it was really good to see that you'd done pre and post questionnaires and captured data that could be used to evidence the change. Often organizations want to do these kinds of things, but they don't have the data to support it. So it's really refreshing to work with an organization that takes their impact data seriously and knows that actually that if we've got really good data on the change and impact that we're having, not just on the children but also with the practitioners that are delivering and facilitating the programs, you're actually much more in a stronger place to then put out statements and claims about what your programs deliver, as opposed to having to try and retrospectively capture data, which is not as accurate as doing it at the initial time.
Yeah, and that's something we're very keen at Innovating Minds, is to make sure it's evidence-based and that we measure the impact of the work that we do. Right, so thank you so much, Heidi, for that snapshot of what is social return on investment, and going into detail about what it is, the limitations of it, and also what the calculations showed for the Healing Together programme. So if you are interested to find out more, do follow Heidi Fisher. She's available on all social media channels and very responsive as well. And don't forget to take a look at our website to find out the social return on investment for the Healing Together programme.